Okay.
All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us inside the Rethink University. My name is Jaron. I'm going to be your host for this afternoon's presentation, and we're very grateful that we're able to facilitate this for all of you students and parents who may be interested in learning about the next step and what's the next step in life. And this afternoon we have a fantastic team of panelists who are a mixture of past students, including Suan. Yes, Suan went to CIC as well. And then we have a guest past student from Holy Name Convent, Krista Solomon, is going to be joining us as well to give their perspectives and their experience based on studying in universities that we don't normally hear about in this part of the world, and people had to go and do a lot of work to find out about, and sometimes people stumbled across, but you hear the different stories from each of our panelists as to how they did, whether it's undergrad or whether it's their master's or postgrad, whatever it was that they studied. You're going to get a nice collaboration of the experiences, and then we're going to have a chat with the some representatives from the universities and from various embassies, where we're going to get more information on how to get into some of these schools as well and what's possible. So, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to start things off this afternoon. Well, before I go any further, I want to remind you guys. Well, this is the second Rethink University. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but when I was in CIC, we didn't have this luxury afforded to us where people came and gave all this information about possibilities our possibilities were limited to what we could find at the point in time. For me, I can say in my experience, I was very limited to know about schools in Europe and America, and then the West Indies, of course. Unfortunately, you have way more options available to you, and where I am personally honored to be able to be a part of bringing it to you. So to get things started, I want to welcome the principal, Mr. Nigel Joseph, to just give us his welcoming remarks and an opening prayer before we get started. Mr. Joseph?
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. And if you join me in a brief prayer as we begin this afternoon's proceedings. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, indeed, we give you thanks and praise for the blessings and opportunities given us. And we thank you, Lord God, that there are those who see it fit to share their opportunities, their experiences with others, our present student body, that they in turn can then make best informed decisions as they plot their own course in their future endeavors. May you truly bless the presenters and those who may sign in and indeed find that they may find it fruitful, beneficial to their questions and their looking for answers and their decisions down the road. Indeed, O Lord, with your guidance, all things are possible. You continue to use us to be your instruments to help others to find their dreams and goals and achieve their ambitions. In your name we pray. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And good afternoon all to all who are signed in and to the esteemed panelists. And it is indeed very heartening for me, largely because a lot of the individuals involved are persons who I would have been their dean or might have even taught them at some point in time. So it makes me feel a sense of accomplishment that apart from the academia, that they appreciate the importance of giving back. And I look on these young men as if they're my own sons. And it really, really brings a joy to my heart that their life's journeys, experiences, and those who they have become close associates with come on board to help those young men who are presently what at some point in time at a stage they were at, and giving them, as Jaron said, giving them an even better opportunity to make the best decisions in their future aims and to really understand and be more aware of what are the options available to them. So I really am excited about this second Rethink University. I was present for the whole presentation of the first one, and I was extremely impressed. And as was said, I mean, if Jaron could say that, imagine in my time, the only university you knew about was UE. So things have changed so much, and that there are those who are willing to enlighten, to explore, to reveal, so that you young men at St. Mary's College and any other who may be signing in may have that opportunity to make the most informed decisions for your future goals and dreams. So without much further ado, I hand over to the moderator, and I hope that this evening's proceedings would really be one that you enjoy and find to be invaluable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. Before we get to the moderator, who's going to be James Walker, I just want to take some time to acknowledge and thank the Past Students Union of St. Mary's College, because the Past Students Union is the one who actually came up with the idea for this Rethink University, and we're very proud to be able to be a part of the school still, even though we are all, of course, past students, as the name would imply. I am the communications officer at the Past Students Union, and recently appointed, and I look forward to being able to work with the school to help get more people involved in the Past Students Union, so that we can continue to do work like this to be able to take the students to the next level, or the level that they need to be, and provide as much assistance as we can. For those of you who may not know, the Past Students Union is also responsible for a lot of the fundraisers that do occur to assist with expenses in the school, namely Dining with the Saints, and of course the main fete, amongst a bunch of other things which you will learn about as we go. This Rethink University is the second one, as Mr. Joseph would have said just now, out of a total of 4 that we're having. So we have 2 more coming up, and we hope that you can join us for the other 2. The other 2 are going to deal with what it takes to get into college, into the big name colleges as they call them, How do you position yourself to be a part of that? As well as how do you finance getting into college? That's just very, very short synopsis of what we have in store with regards to Rethink University, because we don't want to take too much time. We want to get started. If you missed the first session, you can actually check it out on YouTube. You can just go look up Rethink University on YouTube and you will be able to access the first session. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the moderator for today, Mr. James Walker. James?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So for today's session, we have a fantastic panel, as mentioned. We have folks who are alumni, as well as we have one member of the panel, Krista, who's a it can't be a sister school, but it almost wish it was a sister school, sometimes holy name. Fantastic panel. I don't want to take up too much time introducing them. You saw their names on the introduction slide while we were waiting to start the event. And what I'm going to do is just hand over to you. The structure of this session is each of them will give a very short presentation, 5 minutes or so, about a little bit about their story and how they got there. And then we will have time for Q&A afterwards for about half an hour. And then after that Q&A session, we then move over to, can you hear me all right? Screen has gone blank.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry
hearing
about that.
you.
Yeah, James, we're hearing you.
Screen is totally black. Anyway, after that session, we will go into a special session with our embassy guests. So we have folks from the German embassy, the EU Erasmus program, as well as the Indian High Commissioner, who's going to join us as well. So we have two parts in this session. So I'm just going to hand over you now to Suan. Suan, who's going to be our first panelist to present.
Thanks, James. So as mentioned, my name is Suan Marquis, and I went to CIC for sixth form. So from 2000 to 2002, I wanted to be taught by the infamous Father Lifuk, like my brothers did, because I did math and physics. I currently live in the south of France, working for one of the energy majors. And I've been working internationally now for just over 14 years. While at CIC, I did both SATs and A-levels like my peers. And that was, the intention was basically to go, well, first of all, either locally to UE, at the time it was just UE, or to go somewhere within the States or the UK. And it was by chance that I was sent a brochure from this German university called Jacobs University. It's an international university, private university in northern Germany. And I applied, I got through, and I got some financial aid. Now, one of the drivers for me at the time was financial aid. That was one of the highest determining factors. So I had gotten into two universities with equivalent financial aid, one in Florida and one in Germany, this one, Jacobs. And I think it all came down to the intrigue of going down a different path, let's say, and going to a German university. It was a very international university. It was 200 and something students in my year with maybe 60 something different nationalities. So it was very, very international. It was a fantastic experience. After, and another reason why I chose it as well, you can get your bachelor's in 3 years as opposed to 4 years in the school in Florida. So that was also another bonus for me. After that 3 years, I came back to Trinidad and I spent some years working in the local energy sector, after which UTT had opened up and I decided to go do a master's of petroleum engineering at UTT. And I continued again. I worked in Baker Hughes in Trinidad, and yeah, continued applying because I really did enjoy working abroad and just the international exposure in general. So I wanted to get some more experience, in particular in the industry somewhere like the Middle East or West Africa, where the energy was really something to work and to get some experience in. So I did that. I got a job in Qatar. And since 2007, I've been working in Qatar. I spent some years in Angola, US, Denmark, and now France. And I think one of the biggest things and one of the learnings that I have been able to take since studying in Germany was the courage that it took to be one of the very few people to just pick up and go to Germany. I've become a lot more independent and resilient from very early on. I have worked in many different places with all kinds of different cultures, and the learnings that I had from even way back then, I carry with me now because I never feel out of place, or I always feel at home wherever I am. So I think that being adaptable and open-minded is something that I gathered from, just that experience in Germany. And it really did give me a global mindset that really is beneficial now, both to me and my employer. So I think those are my key messages for my experiences so far and the learnings that I have even today.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue-Ann. So I'm going to hand over now to Basil, the graph.
Okay, thanks, Sue-Ann. So the comment you made about being comfortable in many different environments definitely resonates, because you just get used to being out of place for some, in some sense, and yeah, I think that's it's normal and it's important. I'm sure when you showed up to France for the first time, you didn't feel French. So, but that's an important tool when you're navigating in the international environment, nonetheless. So I'll share a little bit about my story. I graduated from CIC in 2004, which seems like a very long time ago, not so long ago. And I went to the US to study. But when I was preparing to leave for the US, my dream was really to study chemical engineering and come back and work in the oil and gas sector. But that changed very quickly after my experience in the US. There are two big things that happened to me. One of them was just being exposed to liberal arts education. Liberal arts education is a very broad-based education. Like in Trinidad, we have education stream where you go down business or you go down sciences. Liberal arts is more of a flat education approach where you learn a lot more subjects. So my first exposures to art, religion, well, not religion alone, but religions, because CIC is a Catholic school. So, and I am Catholic, but religions, multiple religions in a kind of a theoretic and an academic sense, politics, conflict, all of those things, history of specific countries, those things really opened up my mind. And I do remember feeling like somebody pulled the wool up from my eyes, opened up this curtain, and I see things in a completely different light. And that really changed me. I remember a point when I almost changed my major from chemical engineering to history. And I'll say thank God for moms, because my mom encouraged me not to go on this whim and change my major. Of course, learning history is important. Of course, having a liberal arts education is important, but I could balance the two. So that was the first big change. And, my goal was to learn to become a chemical engineer, but it changed to becoming an educated chemical engineer, broad-based education. The second big thing that happened to me was in the US, maybe it happens in other schools too, I was lumped in with the international community. So in my first year, I must say that I made a friend from every major city in the world. And that really expanded my perspective, seeing everyone's story and everyone's individual piece of history and how it shaped them. And that really sent me further down the path of curiosity and exploring a more broad education, broad exposure for myself. So I finished my chemical engineering degree, and when I was ready to study, when I was ready to take the next step in my further education, it was kind of clear for me that I would transition out of the US and go to a different country. And I picked Singapore to do that primarily because, being an engineer, I was always very fascinated with technology, still very fascinated with technology. And I'm currently in the medical technology, medical devices space. And, you know, Asia is going through this transition of, from, I would say, we have this idea of Asia being bootleg central, but Asia has been going through this long transition where they're moving out of that stereotypical label of bootleggers and moving into the innovator space. And that journey has been quite long and interesting. And the government of Singapore, in particular, had been investing a significant amount of money in innovation and creating an economy based on innovation. So that was very appealing to me. So I went to live in Singapore, tried it out for a bit, worked in a university doing research, and then I knew that I wanted to complement my engineering background. So I did an MBA in a school called INSEAD. And you know, when you start the slippery slope of travel, it just continues going. I choose this school in particular because they had a campus in France and a campus in Singapore. So I was able to get some of my academic exposure in Singapore and then moved to France with the same school. So, you know, it's been an amazing opportunity, experience, great learnings. I still look back on every single country that I visited, every single person that I meet, and all of the learnings that I take from individuals. And it's made me a better individual. It's made me a more empathetic individual. And I appreciate that experience a lot. And if I would say the learning for me, the first thing is that employers do appreciate international exposure. A lot of the jobs that I apply to, one of the criteria on the list is international experience. And I think they acknowledge that the benefit of employees who have this broad perspective. What else? Yeah, I think I just said it. The other thing is just learning about empathy. You know, learning to see the world through the eyes of someone else is so important. And I thought that when I moved to the US, I had learned this skill of adapting to different cultures. And I thought that going to Singapore would be quite easy. But I still didn't have that tool very sharply developed of empathy and being able to think through the eyes of someone else from a completely different culture. And you know, we have a lot to learn from this constant change of environment and forcing ourselves out of our comfort zone. So I learned a lot from that perspective on empathy. So I'm quite like Suan. Coincidentally, I'm also based in France. I'm based in Paris. And I work, as I said, in the medical devices space and doing marketing with an international company. And my one fear is that I'll continue down the slippery slope and I'll be moving again in the next 2 years, because I do like some stability in my life. But we'll see. Once you start moving, as I said, you keep going. But you only go on to better things. So that's all from me. And I'm not sure who's next.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to hand over to Jesse now.
Hi, good afternoon all, and thanks for the opportunity to share my story with you all. My name is Jesse Walker. I attended CIC only for 2 years, but I have very, very fond memories, most importantly of sport, football, cricket. I really enjoyed most of my time there. So what can I say about myself and the story of studying overseas? I think it really dates back to a young teenager and a child when I didn't travel outside of the Caribbean until I was 14. And I recall very vividly, you know, going to the States for the first time and seeing, wow, Miami, you know, these restaurants, big hotels, buildings, and being a bit awestruck. And I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but at the same time, you know, it's true. You see all of this on TV, but you don't get to experience it yourself. And I thought, well, boy, you know, this is the epitome of first world life, you know, TV thing, so to speak. And then fast track a couple of years later, I went to university in Miami. 3 days after arriving at school, I learned that I would be a father in a couple of months. I found out that my girlfriend was pregnant. And that sort of threw my life into massive disarray at the point in time. But I eventually decided to stick out the semester there, return home, and finish a business degree at Roytech, University of New Brunswick, which was great. So I started working full-time and studying part-time until I finished my degree. And I think at that point in time, life was kind of trucking along a certain path, but something big happened in 2006, and as Trinidad made it to the World Cup. And I'm a big football fan, and decided, to hell with that. As a young father, I go in one way or another. So I took a loan and went to Germany. And I remember arriving there and just being like, wait, I thought Miami was the ticket, this place is on another level. I mean, going down the Autobahn, no speed limits, no traffic, coming out of a stadium of 65,000 people in less time than it takes to get into the Hazley Crawford with 25,000. In my mind, wow, there's so much more outside there. Much like Basil said, that you thought you had all of this knowledge, but realized, you're really quite ignorant after all. So that left a little thirst at the back of my mind, at the back of my brain. A year later, I graduated from Roytech. I was working, stable job, but tried to go and do my master's, and naturally looked into the specialty that I was focusing on, which is shipping and maritime business. So I found a great program in London and another one in Rotterdam, Holland. Never been to Holland. London, obviously, is very well known. And after some research, I realized that, the port of Rotterdam is the biggest port in Europe. They're very, very specialized, and a lot of the maritime business world centers around the Dutch. And most importantly, after having the experience in Germany, I figured, well, Germany and Holland can't be much different. So Holland it is, apart from the fact that it's much cheaper too than London. So I packed my bags with my young 4-year-old son and girlfriend at the time, and arrived in Amsterdam with two suitcases, asking a cab driver how to get to Rotterdam. Just very, very country-like. But I have to say, at the end of it, it turned out to be the best decision of my life, for multiple reasons. It absolutely opened my eyes to how people in other parts of the world live. And you realize that, we have a lot of sort of preconceived ideas of what good looks like and how things should be. But when you experience from a different culture, and you see it's not only like what people are doing, but also how they go about doing it, I felt that, it was really powerful for me. So I tell everybody, the program itself was fantastic. I learned a hell of a lot in terms of technical skills. Maritime economics and logistics was the field of study. But much more important than that, the experience of actually living there and being immersed in that culture, just seeing the way people think, why do they do things this way and how they set stuff up. It really opened my mind, and I was able to take a lot of those learnings back with me when I returned to Trinidad, back into my former job, and really helped to sort of, in that time, disrupt how we did things essentially and do it differently. And as a matter of fact, 10 years after, I wanted to do a little bit of a career change. So I decided to go and do an MBA. And I went straight back there with my eyes closed for multiple reasons. And I'll be happy to share all of those reasons with you all. But essentially, it's fantastic quality of education, very open mindset, international environment, and a great deal more. But I guess my main message is, all goals are achievable. There's no way I would have ever thought at 19, 20, 21 that I would have moved over there. And I think we're only limited by the vision we have and the desire to work hard and adjust the circumstances. And then secondly, and critically also to, go for the best and try to make it. The best is suited for you. You never know how close to it you'll get, but you'll never know if you don't try either. So that's it for me. Thanks a lot.
Jesse, thank you very much. kind of remind me of the interviews that they do after you win a gold medal or a silver medal in the Olympics, and they say, "Yeah, just do it. You can do it." It's just true. So I'm gonna pass you.
That's how I felt.
That's how you felt. That's how it is. Let me pass on to Krista for her introduction. Welcome.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks again for inviting me to this as the only non-CIC ex-pupil. So yeah, it's interesting because I'm hearing everybody's stories, and there's one common thread, which is adaptability, and I think seizing the opportunity when it's in front of you, and that's so important when it is that you're thinking of your next step. So in my case, I graduated in 2004 from Holy Name. And at the time I did A-levels in physics, French, and Spanish. So already my choices were not all grouped into one direct choice or specialty. I liked languages because I liked, speaking with other people, but not necessarily because I wanted to go into linguistics or translation studies. But I also really love physics as well. So with the support of my mom, I took 2 years to kind of reflect on what I wanted to do. I was thinking about, okay, do I want to do astrophysics, specialize in physics, go look to the US and Canada, as we usually tend to do if it is that we want to go abroad and study. I knew I wanted to travel as well. So I started shopping around schools, and, after seeing the cost, I say, I have to kind of think out of the box here. So I got wind of 2 past pupils that were in my year group in Holy Name who were studying in France already. So when I kind of found out more information, what intrigued me with one of the girls was that she was studying business in a French university, which I hadn't thought of at all. Like, you always think, yeah, you're going to France to study French, you're going to Germany to study German, and that's it. So I went to the Alliance Française in Trinidad to kind of find out more information. How do I go about applying to universities in France? You have your 3 options in France. So you have the public universities, you have your private universities, and then you have the international universities based in France. So you have those 3 options based on whatever your needs are. I applied for the French public universities, and the entry requirements would be that you have to test your level of French because all of the classes are going to be taught in French. Needless to say, I did not get the level that I needed on both tries each year, so I failed both times. The first year that I tried, I applied to 3 universities. I was not accepted. I tried again, and one of the universities came back to me with a positive response, which I was not expecting. So I said, you know what, okay, going to France in 2 months, let's do this. So I jumped on a plane, went to France, went to the University of Tours. One thing as well that I forgot to mention is the tuition costs over here. So the public universities at the time for me costed about 400 euros a year. If it is, I think now it's about 3,000 a year. But it's way more affordable than if you were to invest in something and let's say you have a budget and you want to travel, you want to study abroad, you want those options available to you. So that's what I did. I went over to France, did my bachelor's in business and language studies, thinking that it may have been a little bit easier to manage in French than physics. I was wrong, but I still managed to get through, got my bachelor's in 2009. I had access as well to the University of Madrid. So I went to University of Madrid for an Erasmus exchange in the 3rd year of university before getting my bachelor's. And then in 2009, again, met at a crossroads, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I returned to Trinidad, tried to find a job, wasn't sure how to place myself, and I don't think I knew how to position myself either with that degree. So before my visa expired, I went back up to France, got my master's applied for the master's in international business development and languages in the same University of Tours. And I got my master's in 2012. So now I'm based in Paris, and I specialize in the tech industry, so everything cloud and analytics and all that stuff in Paris. And yeah, that's my story. One thing I would like to say though is that yeah, try to think out of the box. Languages can also be used as a tool to get to where you need to go or want to go. You don't always have to, see that vision as what we tend to streamline everyone as in Trinidad. We put a lot of pressure as well early on. So I think it's just, take your time, reflect on those decisions and the next steps that you want to do and go for it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Crystal. All right, good. So just in terms of the next step here is what we're going to open the Q&A. So there are two ways for you to do this. The first one is to click on Q&A, which is below on your screen near the bottom of your screen, I suppose, and type in your questions, and we will be able to see those questions pop up. So we already have a couple of them that have been raised. The other way is if you put your hand up, basically as an attendee, we can allow you, we can provide the functionality for you to ask a question live, I believe, if you want to come in on the audio. So you have two options to do that. So we had one question come in so far, which I'll ask, which Krista kind of already started to explain at it, and it'd be interesting to hear from if any of the others had this challenge, but maybe not, which is that during the presentations, can't help but think about language barriers. Can anyone discuss the issue of language barriers?
I love this one. I love this one. Jesse, if you don't mind, I'll take this one. So language barriers is a funny thing, but you really, going to school and speaking a foreign language might be difficult. But what I found living in a foreign country, all you need to know is a few phrases. If you show someone interest, that you're interested in their language, that you're interested in their culture, that breaks all the barriers. And of course, it's like your start of your own journey to develop some skills. So in Singapore, I learned how to order my coffee and my breakfast in a dialect, a local dialect that's quite commonly used in Singapore. And that changed my life. It breaks down so many barriers. So I don't think it's the biggest challenge. And if you have the will, you will learn a language, but you don't even need to be fluent in a language to communicate and to break barriers.
And I suppose it depends on the program too. So there are many programs around the world, even in non-English speaking countries, where the course instruction is in English. And when you have the German embassy is going to come on in a little while, they'll mention that as well, I think. But also there are programs in many countries where you could do it in English these days. Of course, there's some places where you're going to have to go and learn that language first. For example, the Korean opportunity, where you have scholarships actually in Korea. You go for a year and you just study Korean before you get into the university. And then some people like me, you just kind of end up winging it a little bit. And when I went to Brazil, I had just 3 months of Portuguese, and I struggled like crazy. And I went home every day, watched TV with subtitles on. And it took me like about 6 weeks to even understand what the professor was saying. And I barely passed the course. But I learned so much. and I would never shy away from that again. And that was the forced, when you're forced to learn a language, you really learn it. You have no choice. So, really, it depends on the program. And obviously, Krista may be the best place because I guess you were the one who did it fully in another language, I suppose, of all of us.
Yeah, so I did, my majors were in French and my minors were in English plus a foreign language for them. So that was Spanish for me. So I actually did classes in all 3 languages, but doing the business in French, I'm not gonna lie, it was hard, but it's feasible. It's something that if you put your mind to it, as you say, you really step out of your comfort zone, you chat with people who you meet. There were a few Trinidadians as well in that university, not in my year group, but a little bit higher. So I got their support as well. You really need to apply, that drive if that's what you want to do as well. And it's more than doable. I know a girl that did physics as well in French up here a couple of years back.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, we had a second question which relates to the financing. So what advice could you give to students who need financial assistance? I don't know who wants to try that one.
I could just talk from my experience. What I found is that there's actually quite a lot more out there than at least I was aware of. And I know, for example, I was offered a diversity scholarship for one of the programs, just simply from being from Trinidad. They said we'll knock 20% off the fees immediately. So I'm not sure, but get out there. I think there's a lot of documentation online that tells you about various different things, and be bold and ask all of the schools, what's available out there would be my recommendation.
Yeah. And I think this session a little bit later on with the embassies is going to give you some insights into those countries. But I can also say that there are a lot of low-cost opportunities out there. Cuba, Costa Rica, the Scandinavian countries where education is free or close to free. It's kind of social democracies. There are a lot of options out there. You have to be kind of willing to scope it out a little bit. Suan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just to add on to what Jesse said, being from Trinidad, we are very small, and we will be small wherever we go, but we're even smaller when we go to somewhere like in Europe or different places. And that you can use that to your advantage. I also got a partial scholarship simply for being Trinidadian, because I was adding to that diversity quota. And also, the other bit of it, the living expenses, you can get jobs, and that's really typical for international students. Number one, I was a TA in a couple of different courses, but also I took out school loans just for other expenses. So there are lots and lots available. There are many financial aid offices within the universities that will tell you the different options that there are. So for sure, you can try different avenues.
Awesome. Another question that we have is related to the entry requirements, because obviously the boys would be doing CAPE. And how do you go from CAPE to a university in Europe or Asia? Anyone has any thoughts on what was your transition like? Were there any bridges that you had to cross in order to get into this school? And I know we kind of dated a little bit. It's been a few years for us since we got in, but and maybe it's a bit different now. So you have to caveat it a little bit, but maybe you could give your experience, Krista, or others.
Yeah, so I found it was pretty easy actually in terms of transition. So I don't know if the question is transition in terms of level or transition in terms of paperwork, but in both ways, it was feasible in the sense that you provide your results. So whatever your CAPE results would be, or during the application process, that is what I gave during the application process. And then in school, you basically start off at a level at first, the first year of university is probably the equivalent to just in between O levels and A levels. So that would be CAPE level as well. So it's very much aligned with the levels that, you would think. It's not a huge jump either. So I think we just,
Yeah, it seems like we may have just lost James there for a second.
Yeah.
He was having some connectivity issues. Krista, somebody was asking, what was your MBA?
So it wasn't an MBA, it's just a master's in international business development and languages. So that is what I took in the University of Tours, and basically it's negotiation studies and business studies applied to international business.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, good. All right, I have a question that's not from the participants, but I think and I know there's some parents, they're going to be parents online, but how did you have to work on your parents to convince them that you would go across the world on your own to a new place where they didn't have any family, and what was that? How did you convince them in that regard? Maybe we could go with Suan. Maybe you could tell us. You went to Germany right out of university, right out of St. Mary's. How did that work?
I'm one of 7 kids, so I think one missing in my mother's eyes wasn't a big deal. So I had no convincing to do. I just had to say I got a scholarship and I left. So I might be the wrong person to answer that question.
Okay, all right. Who's the mommy's boy or the mommy's girl who was latching on, or are we all liberated people?
I don't know if I'll call myself a mama's boy, but I will say that my relationship with my mother was improved significantly when I left home. And in terms of, winning the confidence, it was more on reassurance that I'm not going to disappear. The visibility that I will be home on a semi-regular basis, and also the confidence on the financial side. I think parents obviously are concerned about their kids taking on financial burdens. And if you can sort that out, I think parents will sleep a lot better at night.
Yeah, I think my parents were definitely paranoid when I was living in Rio, and I wouldn't put stuff in my pockets. I'd put it in my jockey shorts, basically, because everybody I knew was getting robbed. And of course, I couldn't tell my parents these kind of things because they would freak out. But I get that's also part of it too. It's about the independence and doing things on your own, maybe for the first time, and going away to anywhere. Even if you go in Cave Hill, is going to be tricky, and outside of Trinidad, away from your parents, and maybe going a bit further afield or into another language is potentially even more so. But I think there are also a lot of good places, and I remember I know a lot of Suan's colleagues, for example, because there were students in that school that came on a program with me to Japan and Singapore. And they were so diverse. There were German people and Indian people and Turkish and all these people. So actually, once you go into these spaces, you find there's a whole lot of international students that quickly you realize, wow, we all in the same boat. We all trying to figure out how to get a bus pass. We all trying to figure out how to pay for this food or things like that. And then you kind of build that community a little bit. So it seems daunting, but it's really, really doable. We had another question, right? So which was, if a graduate wanted to develop their language, going back to the language, if a graduate wanted to develop their language skills with no prior experience with the languages, what specific avenues are available? So maybe if Krista, you want to talk about the Alliance Française route, and
yes, I think I could give this option as a some kind of choice that you have. But I know that there are a lot of Trinidadians that come over to France every year as a teaching assistant. So they come over to teach English for about 8 months in France. They would apply again through Alliance. It could be either universities going down to primary school level in France. So I think that is a good exposure, first exposure. You can do that several times for up to 2 years. So if it is that you want to test something out, and I know several countries have that available as well. It's not only in France. So you could look into that as well as one of the options. That's what I tend to tell people as well before, you want to test out the waters kind of thing before going over to the country.
Yeah, and then maybe the other point on that to share would be each of us had a different route, and Krista and Suan went as undergrads, Jesse went as a graduate student, Basil as well went US and then went out to Asia. I went to the US and then spent a year in the US 4-year program in Latin America. So it could be that maybe there's some easier entry into it. Maybe you start somewhere, maybe you start UE and then start learning the languages there because you didn't get to do it at St. Mary's. And then you might do an exchange program, or maybe you do your graduate school abroad, because by then you have a little bit more time to actually pick up the languages. If like me, your parents made you drop it after Form 3 and you were starting from scratch to try to get into the university space. So Jesse, you had a point?
Yes, sorry, I just wanted to add a little bit different from this, but similar. For me, not about the language necessarily, but the question is, how did you go about learning the language to get there? I just think it's important. I actually used education as my tool to get there. I wanted to go and live abroad, and I saw the education as the step, or getting into university as the conduit to go into live abroad. So I think that's just an important opportunity, beyond just the education itself.
James, I just wanted to add for a second there as well that we also have the opportunity where we have so many learning apps where you can learn languages on your phone, and they train you with it daily. I think those definitely add a benefit that we didn't have. We didn't have those kind of cool apps back in the day to learn languages before you get there and to help you along the way as well.
Excellent. That's a good point. Very good point. All right, so next question, which is this is a good one. So would an undergraduate degree from a European or Asian university limit your employment or postgrad opportunities in the US, for example?
I think much like my last point, actually, for me, I firmly believe you should try to study at least where you want to start off. If you want to start off in a specific city, it makes sense getting into the network within that city and that environment, at least for me. If it would limit the opportunity, I think it's always easier to get a visa, work visa, if you need one, with a degree from that country. But it's obviously always possible.
Basil?
Yeah, I just wanted to second that comment from Jesse. So in my MBA program, as I mentioned, there were 2 campuses, one in France and one in Singapore. And the advice from the career team was that if you want to work in Asia, you should graduate or finish your studies in Asia, because at the end of the studies, you start building your network. So if you want to work in the US, you should probably get a US degree or at least spend some time in the US building your networks. And it's really invaluable piece of building that connection between where you want to be after your studies.
Great. Suan?
And I just wanted to say the very opposite. So it depends, in my opinion, the industry. So for example, I studied in Germany, went back to Trinidad and did a master's, but then I worked almost everywhere. And I don't think, in particular with very global minded or international companies, it really doesn't matter where you started off studying. So I think it probably is more dependent on the company culture perhaps, or even, the industry itself.
That's a really good point. And I think as well, for the big companies that are out there, the attractive companies, if you went to apply for Facebook and you were from Trinidad and you went to National University Singapore, a fantastic university, or you went to University of Cape Town, or you went to Rotterdam, or you went to London, Sweden, or if you went to University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, I mean, those are all fantastic. That these recruiters are going to know these schools. So, I mean, what I would say is, look, go out there and go for the best out there too, because these are name brand schools. I mean, the Facebook recruiters probably more likely to know National University in Singapore than UE. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, no offense, but you're going out there for the whole world, right? And I think you have to kind of consider, well, you're shooting for the best. People are going to know those places that you've been to. And they're also going to recognize that, look, this is a guy or girl from Trinidad who didn't speak French and then went and learned French and then got into wherever, Sorbonne, and then wants to move to New York. Well, all right, sounds like this person is pretty adaptable. Sounds like this person is going to be able to jump into my organization and connect with my Francophone customers and that, open-minded employers, which is, you want to aim for them anyway, could see ways around that and can pull the story of who you are as well in a nice way. All right, cool. So this is a interesting question. I don't know if any of us are well equipped for this, but what are some things that are checked to get into your university that are not commonly known? Or maybe the question is like, what are recruiters actually looking for that people don't really think to include on their application or their resume? What might those be? Jesse, go ahead.
I don't know if this is the right answer for the question, but I mean, from my perspective, what I found and what I realized is with the application, we have as Trinidadians, we have a good story of ourselves, and with all of the applicants, they try to understand, what is your individual story? Let's be frank. I mean, probably India might produce 1 million people a year with superior or as good grades as some of the highest ranking trainees. What is unique about you to get in there? And for me, I thought just honoring your true story really helps you, build yourself for 2 reasons. One is they get to know a little bit more about you. And also, if they think you're right for the school, well, they know actually who you are. So it helps. So yeah, telling your story.
Awesome. Krista?
Yeah, I think we have the vision as well of how you would kind of sell yourself with an American university as well. It's not quite, at least not in my experience, the same approach in France, at least. I don't know about the other European countries, but I find that it's less cutthroat and needing to show something, extraordinary. I think, yes, sticking honest to your story and, saying why you wanna study in that university. And also, I think they do look, to your point, they look for that diversity in the first place anyway, and it's already telling for someone from Trinidad that's not very common in their universities to come over and study there.
Agreed. Okay, awesome. Let's so we have about 5 more minutes for this section before we jump over to some of the embassies. So we have one other question, which was, how do you think the pandemic will affect opportunities for study abroad? An interesting one. And I think this is something that maybe our embassy guests are gonna help us with in a second. But actually, I wanted to make one more point before we jump into that question, which was that and Jaron mentioned it at the start. There's another Rethink session coming up where we're going to talk about how do you think big and position yourself and frame your experience in the best possible way for universities. So we're going to cover some of these topics that was just mentioned as to how you set yourself up for success. And as Krista rightly alluded, some of the US schools are looking for different things than other schools. And, describing your ethnic and racial background means something different for a US school, for example, than it would for a school in Spain or something like that. I mean, there are different ways of positioning yourself. So just in terms of the pandemic, we know from the data that we have is that a lot of students and parents are pulling back a little bit in terms of study abroad, not just in terms of the far-flung places, the beautiful places that we're talking about, but even Jamaica and even Florida and the more standard places that you could go to. And we understand the reasons, because your uncertainty about travel and what if there are other lockdowns, what if the borders close again and I'm away abroad, and etc. Why have to transition to virtual space, and why leave Trinidad if I'm going to be in a virtual university anyway? And I think there are naturally some good questions that come about, and everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. And every country is going to be, so there's some countries that have very high vaccination rates and the economies are opening up, and universities, for example, is in school in Boston, and they're moving to full physical face-to-face education from September when school opens. But it's going to be very different depending on where you are and the limitations of it. So it's a bit hard to answer the question, because I think it depends a bit on the country, depends a bit on the university. If I had to hedge my bets, yeah.
I think we should let the embassy answer that question, because I think they will have a little bit more insight into it. But before we wrap up, I see a question here about asking about the universities overseas recognize our own local programs from UE, Arthur Luckchuck, etc. I guess in that question is based on having to transition from studying in Trinidad, and if you want to do your postgraduate outside of Trinidad, like Jesse would have done, or even Suan would have done. Can you guys shed some light on that?
From my perspective, yes. When I applied to my first master's program, my grades weren't that hot. I was studying part-time, and the key thing that they wanted to check was that I had the academic ability, which I think I did, and they had a chat with the lead professor from University of New Brunswick down here, and he gave them his personal opinion on my ability. Beyond that, I think, they accept it. I'm not sure about some of the more challenging or hard to get into, like science programs, for example.
And I did the opposite. So I studied in Germany and then returned to Trinidad to do my master's. And I mean, there has been no issues in terms of applying internationally for companies with this degree. So I can't imagine that it would be different for getting accepted into universities.
Yeah. And I mean, UE especially, has a good reputation. It's a globally ranked university. I mean, people are going to recognize that and the academic quality that you come out with at UE. So I think, I mean, once you're talking about an accredited program, if you're assuming that you're in an accredited bachelor's program, there are a lot of opportunities to go outside. I have a lot of friends and family, my wife who studied in UE and then went out to other countries, UK, France, etc., and then went and did their masters. So what I would say is that it's 5:30 and we want to keep on time, but you guys can continue to ask questions to the panel if you want through the Q&A chat. That's completely fine, and we can type in the answers and also follow up with you directly as case may be. So maybe what I'll do is just hand back over to our host, who could just walk us through the next three segments.
All right, thank you so much, James, and thank you to our entire panel as well. So far, I think so good. So far, so good. And we're going to continue by welcoming the embassies to have a chat with us and present, some of what they have to offer as well and the options that are available to you. So to kick things off, I want to welcome representing the German embassy. Please forgive me if I pronounce it incorrectly. I'm sorry in advance. Katharina Gunther.
It's Katarina. Yes, that's totally fine. I hope you can all hear me. And James, you did that for me right now.
Yes.
Right. Okay, well, we can work with that. I see share screen. I could also try to do it myself, but I don't know what would be the best approach here.
Yeah, you can share it. I can stop when you can share.
Right, let me try, because it is actually a 20 minutes. It is a 20 minutes presentation I need to go through quickly, because you only gave me 10 minutes. So we need to really speed things up, and let me dive right into. So welcome everyone, and great thanks to Sue Ann already holding us up very high in studying in Germany. This is, I just giving you, we can go through these first facts quite quickly, because as Sue Ann said already, German universities are like super interested in international students. So you will find a lot of international students on almost every university. This is just an overview from how the ratio has been in the past couple of years. So there is the Americas, which the Caribbean would be part of, is quite small still. So we're trying to get a bigger on that one, which is great that you're giving us the opportunity today to present Germany as a whole. This, just to give you a little idea of the cultural and religious diversity in Germany, not everybody is Christian, but a big chunk. It's about 5% of Muslims, and actually 35% of German population don't even have a religion. They would call themselves atheists. Just to give you an overview on that. Also, the school system per se is very state run. Is very different compared to the Trinidadian system. There is no, I mean, we have religion classes, but there's no body per se that is like your religious schools. This is not the case in Germany, as they're trying to keep that out of the education system. Just to give you an idea, I don't know how Sue Ann got into this private university. I guess they do some advertisement on their own. Me here today, I am presenting the DAD, which is our German Academic Exchange Service, who is presenting most of the universities who are not private. It says 242 universities and a few others. How that breaks down, I will get back to a little bit later. But this is the, as you see in the right corner down there, the study-in-germany.de is the go-to page for everyone who has questions and wants to do some research by themselves. They have lovely videos about how life is in Germany, how university life is, how to apply for it, etc. Like it gives you a nice overview from also foreign students who had the experience, basically what you all did today as well. And it gives you a platform to find your program. Students need to know first of all, they need to know what they would like to study, not this subject, not the university, because the German system is very different compared to what you may know from the US or Canada or the UK with the elite schools. They have big names. Everybody is trying to get into that. The German system is very different to that, because there actually is a government body that is making sure that it's about 400 university in total. They are they're making sure that the quality of education you get is on the same level. So there's no competition among these universities. That is the big difference. There's a big diversity in all these subjects. And as I said, there are a few who are well known, but basically the quality of education is supposed to be equal with among all the universities. This gives us a nice number that are almost 20,000 courses that you can study at all these universities. And this is the breakdown. So there are the universities, there are technical universities, universities of applied science, colleges of music, art and film, and also private colleges who are an opportunity for some people who obviously have the financial means. The programs you could study is, of course, the bachelor, the master's, doctoral, and postdoctoral even. The University of the Applied Science might be not so well known, but they also give you a bachelor and master's, which are recognized worldwide on international standard, and they are more on the practical side. They work very well together with the industry while you are studying, which is a different approach to the regular universities, who is most likely on the technical engineering side, and also the social sciences as well as design. Obviously, who is in art and films, there are special colleges for that as well. The overview of all these courses is on the DAD website. So you can go, there's a program that guides you through what you are looking for towards the special universities who offer, and the course that you are interested in, and you go and apply for it. This is an overview how many years you spend. As Sue-Ann was saying, that was also a fact for you, that the bachelor was only 3, but not 4 years, to shorten that a little bit. It depends on the course you're looking at, but this is an overview how long it will actually take you to study, which is, yeah, coming to German language skills, out of the 20,000 courses, almost, as I got this from the DAD, it was back then, I think it's about 2 years ago, it was about 1,800 courses already offered in English language. It might be more by now, I'm pretty sure, because that is the approach. Germany is interested in the student exchange and foreign students, so they step up their game. But there are some courses that are only taught in German, which I have a lot of requests actually for medicine. So who wants to study medicine that is only offered in German. And for people who really want to go for it, who like the challenge, they go. There is also a visa to apply for that you can do a language course that gets you up to speed that you can study. It's going to be a year that you can do an intense German course that gets you up to speed that you are able to study in Germany what you would like to. That's what I just said. The requirements to qualify for a German university, you have to do the CXC in combination with CAPE. There is a little bit to that because it needs to be equal with the German high school degree, and that requires that you do all your maths and English and science until the very end. This is the second paragraph. I hope you can all see it. That has to be in certain grades until the very end. I can share a story because I had one Trinidadian scholarship winner, and she got to choose the university she wanted to study. Didn't matter what, she was the best in her year and she wanted to study in Germany, but we could not find a way, unfortunately, for her because she specialized in business so early that there was no chance that we could get her to Germany, which was very, very sad. So just to keep that in mind, if you want to, from our experience here at the embassy, if you want to study in Germany and get the recognitions from the school, that you don't specialize too early. Keep the basics until the very end. The application process is pretty much forward. You choose your program, you choose your university, and you file your application. In case you get stuck with something or you have any questions, you could always write an email to the embassy and we're trying to help out, or the DAD. They also have a hotline and they have an information center as well, where you can always file your questions. Once you have your admission letter from the university, you go on the embassy page and book an appointment to apply for your visa. It's pretty straightforward. It takes about 4 to 5 weeks for it to be processed. With the admission letter in your hand, that is actually a no-brainer. You just have to submit everything. It takes 4 to 5 weeks, and then you will receive a 90-day valid entry visa. You have to, upon arrival, you have to contact the alien authority, become registered with them, and they give you your residence permit. Tuition fees. Tuition fees are actually non-existing, or almost not. There only is a semester contribution at the university that can vary, but they are only between 250, 350 euro per semester, which is twice a year. I have seen it, some universities are up to 500, but that is only a few. Also, these costs cover already part of your students' dining, so you get cheaper food at the universities. There's sport activities, cultural events, and everything, and also your public transport is covered in that as well. Scholarships scholarships can only be also be found on the DAD website. There is a special site for that, but most likely this is only offered from master degree and up. You won't find it for bachelor per se. The one requirement financial wise that has to be made is the so-called blocked bank account. So you have to transfer, oh, unfortunately, this number is not correct. It has gone up a little bit. I think it's 10,300 something euros per year. You have to transfer into a German bank account. There are several providers for that. You can search them online and go open that blocked bank account. This has, unfortunately, this has shown to be a little bit problematic within the past 2 years due to the foreign exchange problems within Trinidad, because it has to be euro in a German bank account. We know that Republic Bank they have a section they could help out most likely, but with the others we have no experience, and it seems to be a big problem. Unfortunately, more and more to find the euros to transfer them. So I don't know, the only advice at this point I'm giving these students who really would like to study in Germany, find some relatives somewhere in the world who can help you out. Find some ways to make that happen, because these 10,000 something euro, they cover, it's called a block bank account because they cover all your living costs. You are allowed to take 800 something euros out per month to cover your basic costs of living, like accommodation, food, clothes, books, etc. And I think this is the next slide. You're also, with a student's permit, you're also allowed to work part-time, which is 20 hours a week, or 120 full days, or 240 half days without a special work permit. So most students, as the panelists before me also said, some did. You find jobs at the university itself, or bar, or whatever is available. There is, most of the universities have international student offices with quite a lot of capable people who can guide you on that. Housing situation is not per se, some universities have on-campus living, but what mostly common is that you share spaces with other people, like bigger apartments. I did it myself for more than 10 years. I was living in an apartment with 4 other people. It teaches you a lot about yourself and what to expect later on. All these parents who come here, I highly recommend that for everybody to experience as well. But it's not for everyone. So some people choose to live on their own, which is totally fine, or even on campus living. Some offer it, but not all the universities do.
Just a quick time check, which if we could wrap up in a couple of minutes, if you don't mind.
Yes. Thanks. I'm done. I don't need to go. This is just, let me just, that is the overview of all the important links. I'm happy to share the information that you can spread it if there is interest. But as I said, an email to the embassy is of course possible at any time. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Fantastic. All right, so next we're going to move on to the EU folks, EU Erasmus. I'm going to introduce you to Karen Shepard, who's on the call, as well as Nikhil. Let me know if you can share your screen, Karen, if you need me to. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yes, I think I can. I have it here.
Okay.
So click on that and
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Great, we can see the screen too.
okay. I was trying to put it on full screen slideshow. Is it? That's not happening. Okay. All right. So I'll just click through very quickly. Good afternoon, everybody. So James, you keep me on time, please. I really don't want to keep active proceedings too long. And Nikhil and I have already committed that anything that we cannot get to or if there are any questions that need answering that we can't get to because of a time constraint, we will share any answers with the team, and they can, of course, share them with you all at a later date. We will be here to help in any which way. So just a quick introduction. My name is Karen Shepherd. I'm the Press and Information Officer here at the EU delegation in Trinidad and Tobago. And I have with me standing by an Erasmus scholar. We a little disappointed that we're not able to do the 20-minute session because I would have loved for Nikhil to be able to share with you what his direct experience was being an Erasmus scholar, what was great, what was challenging, get you all to ask questions about it. But again, if you do have questions for him, put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A. We're happy to answer any questions. If we can, Nikhil is looking at the Q&A screen in case anybody has questions. So I'm just going to take you through it very quickly. The one thing I would say as a caveat is that the program I'm about to discuss with you is not an undergraduate program. It is a postgraduate program, the Erasmus Plus joint master's degree program. We don't at present have a bachelor's program, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So let me just tell you what Erasmus Plus is. Erasmus Plus is the European Union's program to support education, training, youth and sports. And it always has had an international dimension. It's a program that started it started about 30 years ago. And every year the international dimension continues to spread to get larger and larger. So far, I think from Trinidad, we've had maybe about 100 or so, maybe a little over 100 students from Trinidad and Tobago that have gotten Erasmus scholarships and have gone to Europe to study. We want to expand that. What we need is for people to apply. So even though I know you, the attendees here are still in secondary school, and therefore you're looking for bachelor's degree, I want you to keep this in mind because the opportunities are there. Yes, it's highly competitive, but our students have shown that they have the capability to do well in this program, but we need to have applications. We need people to apply for the program, okay? So basically there are two types of higher education opportunities for people in Trinidad and Tobago. The one that I'm going to discuss with you is the Erasmus Mundus Joint Master's Scholarship Program. I am not going to discuss the International Credit Mobility Scholarships with you simply because while we've had that in the past and UE has participated, in order for students in Trinidad, say you attend UE in Trinidad or UTT in Trinidad, to be able to do a mobility, which is to spend a 3-month or a 6-month period abroad, your school has to join a mobility, participate in a mobility program. So it's not something you as an individual can control. And thus far, we've not had, I think within the last 5-8 years or so, the last mobility programs that were out of UE have ended. So, and we've not had any education institution in Trinidad, higher education institution, applying to participate in any credit mobility. So I'm only going to discuss with you the Erasmus Joint Master's Scholarship, which, like I said, is a postgraduate scholarship. I don't want to go into much detail for all of this because I think you guys all know this. You heard this from a lot of the participants on the panel today about the fact that there are a lot of things that you can benefit from being abroad. The idea of being able to live abroad, to experience other cultures, and in this case, not just from one country, but from more than one country, which is one of the benefits of doing the Erasmus, getting an Erasmus scholarship, is that you get to study, or at least you are forced to study in at least 2 different countries, universities in 2 different countries. So exposed to 2 different countries in Europe, sometimes more. And that, of course, broadens your horizons, exposes you to different cultures and things like that. And again, I would agree with the participants who said that, having this overseas experience, studying in a university abroad, can only redound in the end to better for your CV, better for your experience, for particularly those larger employers around the world, and including in Trinidad and Tobago, who tend to look at your experiences abroad and study abroad in a favorable light. So it doesn't hurt when you travel abroad at some point in your life to study. I'm going to skip this part, which is the international credit mobility, because like I said, there are no programs right now, but just in brief, it does allow bachelor students to go abroad and study for a semester in a university in Europe. But like I said, that is something schools have to do, and no schools are doing it right now. So there's nothing there. So I'll skip this part and I'll go straight to the Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters program. So basically, what is it? It's a full degree program. It allows you to study for a full specialization in whatever field you require, and it pays, most importantly, all of your expenses. So for all of those people who are worried about not having money, those who are worried about not being able to access foreign currency and things like that, it's a full scholarship. So you do get all of these things taken care of. And every year, which is one of the good things about this program, continues to expand, and there are more and more programs added. I will add, however, that there's a particular focus that the Erasmus program focuses on in terms of the kinds of degrees or courses that you can apply for. And most of them have to do with development, because the idea around the Erasmus program is to allow people from around the world to study programs that they can then take back home and help to develop their country. So it's not a situation where you go to school there and then you stay there. It's something that they want you to do to be able to come back home, to be able to contribute to doing something positive for your country. That's something that Nikhil can speak to a little bit more, hopefully, at the end of this. So basically, how do you apply for a scholarship? Well, it's actually pretty easy. This is the thing I tell everybody. I get a lot of calls at the delegation asking me, I want to get a scholarship, where do I start? The place to start is, what do I want to study? And then the next question you have to ask yourself is, okay, does Erasmus offer this? So there is a course catalog. It will come up in the next slide. You have to check the catalog, go through it very carefully and see if what you want to study, the specializations that you're interested in, if they're there. If they're there, you're in luck. If they're not there, I'm sorry. But the thing about it is, what I can tell you is you can always keep checking back, because the specializations, as I said in the beginning, they keep growing and growing and growing and adding different ones, newer ones, better ones. They've sort of started adding a big cultural dimension as well, I've noticed. So there are lots of programs for people who are studying different aspects of culture, music, dance, all of that they're adding into the program, all right? Very important for anybody, you have to apply within a specific period. Just like with any other applications for schools, typically for the Erasmus program, if you want to start in September, then you have to start applying the year before, all right? And let me just click to the other slide and I'll tell you basically how it works. Right. Right. Okay, let me just go back to a little bit there. At the bottom of your screen, what you see here is the link to the course catalog. But what I can tell you is, if you Google Erasmus Mundus Joint Master Degree Course Catalog, it will come up, all right? But this is the URL there. And this is sort of just gives you a picture of what the course catalog looks like. So what it does is allows you to search by country, credits, well, field of study, whatever, dear student intake, and all of those things. I think the most important one, and the one I always click on, because I think that's what people ask about, is field of study. It's not so much that you want to study in a specific country, even though you might, but it's basically you're looking to see, what do I want to study? When you click through on the particular field of study, it takes you to the university, and then to the university takes you straight to the university portal. The university in and of itself, even though you're applying through Erasmus, they can accept you into the university even if you don't win an Erasmus scholarship. So that's always something to keep in mind, that in spite of the fact that you might be looking for scholarship for maybe because you can't afford it, it's too expensive or whatever, the fact of the matter is that these schools are considering you to come into the school, period, not just through Erasmus. So even if you don't get a scholarship, you can still get into the school, which is great, right? So one of the things you have to be very careful of with the requirements for Erasmus, and like I said, it's all online, you're doing everything online, is you have to make sure that when you are applying, that you follow the rules, follow the guidelines. There's a course catalog, and there's also a program, a catalog, a book that gives you all of the instructions as to how to apply, what to do, and things like that. Worst comes to worst and you have questions, you can always call the delegation, ask. I can always find out if I don't know myself from Brussels about different things that you need to do. But the long and the short of it is, the first way that you will get into this, you'll be able to your best shot at being accepted is to follow the rules. So you look carefully at the requirements and you make sure that you follow all of those requirements. And notice at the bottom there it says deadlines. That's a big thing. That's a big, Nikhil is agreeing.
Yeah.
That's a big
We just have about a minute or so left, if you don't mind. Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, actually, we're almost done. There was the other question that people have been asking about languages. Just like Katharina said, most of the languages are in English, even though, yes, there may be a chance for you to study learning a different language, but most of the master's courses. So please don't let that be a deterrent to applying. And of course, if you're successful, you have to do all of the things to do with getting your visas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can help you with any questions about where you need to apply for your visas, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll see all the other things here about making sure you have the right documents, asking for advice from fellow students. I can always put you in touch with scholarship winners like Nikhil. And so you can learn more. And then, of course, this is my last slide here, useful information. You can find out more about Erasmus here. And there's one last thing, sort of as a bonus, I want to say. While the EU does not promote study in particular European countries, but across Europe, there is a link. It's called Europe Study in Europe, where you can learn about study in individual countries, if that's the way to go. Now, this is not for scholarship, but it's just to learn all about studying in Europe. So if you're thinking, well, I mean, I don't want to do a scholarship, but let me see, I want to study in Greece. You can go in there and learn about study in Greece, that kind of thing. So thank you very much. I don't know if Nikhil wants to add anything quickly before we
I think it was a concise conversation, but if anyone has any questions, I will answer them and send them forward to be distributed after.
So thank you, James.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys very much. All right, James, you with us?
Yeah, we are. You go ahead, Jerome.
Oh, all right. Well, I think we'll take the opportunity now to welcome His Excellency Mr. Arun Kumar Sahu, the High Commissioner of India, to give us the perspective from the Indian High Commission regards to studying abroad.
Good afternoon. You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Yeah, okay. Nice to be here. And I am told that this will be a more interactive session than I giving you, perspective about why study in India and what you study in India. I think I must very briefly say, why do you want to study in India? That's my question to all those who are participating here. That you have many places to go and study, and why do you want to go to India? If you don't know, many of you, if you don't know the maximum number of languages we speak in India, over 4,000, including foreign languages. Some of our private schools actually offer German, French, Chinese, Spanish, to high school students. That's one. You name a race we have, you name a faith we have, and you name any kind of architecture of the world. India has some representation. So in terms of diversity, all that this is my, I think I have spent 25 years in diplomacy, and I have lived in places like China, Iran, London, Canada, traveled to US, and now in the Caribbean. I can tell you that all that we study about diversity and all those political theories and international theories, history and all that, we study in Western universities and universities in India, in the classroom. If you want an experimental society to experience those things and study those things, that is India. So, anybody who wants to do research or anybody who wants to start a college program, for example, I think India is a place which will not only give you the classroom training, but also out of the classroom, outside the classroom, you are actually in that situation. And as an economy, it's a growing economy. It's the fifth largest economy now, and it's the youngest nation of the world. Almost 50% of 1.3 billion population are under 25 years of age. So all those who are trying to study and be part of the workforce of the world for the next, I think, 10 to 20 years, they will find one Indian in the world in every fifth person. So anywhere you are working in North America, Europe, or any other place in the world, I think your neighbor most likely will be an Indian. So whether I always, jokingly say, whether you like it or not, whether you want to be disturbed or not, an Indian is definitely going to knock at your door and disturb you. And, we are representation of a civilization which is over 5,000 years. And if you see the last 1,000 years of our history, it's not only Hinduism, it's also the Buddhist tradition, the Jainism, Buddhism, we have Islam, and then we have the colonialization, which is for 200 years. And then as a young nation, if you see our independence history, it is only 75 years. This year, we actually celebrate India at 75 as an independent democratic nation. It's a parliamentary democracy, and it's a very young nation in that sense. And it's young in terms of age and in terms of ideas. And, there are areas where India has done extremely well in the last 75 years. And one of those, few of those areas are information technology. As you know, some of the major companies of the world, the CEOs are from India. And today, and biotechnology, what is called the new sciences, we call it space technology, genetic engineering, material sciences. One of the best nanotechnologies laboratory in the world is in Bangalore. Where so that's the place you are choosing to be to study. And our official, officially we have recognized 22 languages, but our tertiary education and high school education is in English. So but then I can also remind you that if you want to be successful in a new world, you better be used to the Indian English. There are different kinds of English. So we speak, we have our, because we have, so any Indian child today or traditionally is a bilingual or trilingual. He is born in one language and picks up 2-3 other languages. And by the time he is in the high school, he is actually speaking more than 2 languages. So most of us are multilinguals, and our brain, I think, work in a very multilingual fashion. And that is one of the reasons. India, in any case, it has its own traditional strength of philosophy and anything which is abstract. And that is why you will find Indians, I think, mostly very successful in numbers. Many of them, that's why I think maybe one of the reasons why you see them in information technology, robotics, and you see them in sciences in all over the world, in all premier institutes in the world, are essentially because I think they're more adapted to abstract concepts, in terms of your zero, infinity, and all those concepts, I think has its origin in India. So that is the place that you were looking at. That is the environment that you were looking at. And an Indian classroom will, the professors normally are very competent in terms of, and very open, because the whole tradition of West and East has come to India over many centuries. So you get the Indian perspective, and you also get the Western perspective in any classroom environment. And I think that is one. In terms of what facilities that we have, in fact, we have a long tradition of inviting foreign students and professionals to be trained in India. At any point of time, there are almost 35,000 foreign students and professionals who are actually getting trained in India. And in terms of, let me tell you, in terms of liberal art or social sciences, we have the top-notch universities, which are called the central universities of India. And then, yeah, just show the slide. And in terms of technology that you see, I think you must be hearing many people in the tech area talk about Indian Institute of Technologies. These are post-independent institutions. They are called the temples of technological institutions. There are almost 20 of them all over India, which are called Indian Institute of Technologies. And then we have a second group, which is called National Institute of Technologies, which do engineering and sciences. And then we have for information technology, which is called Indian Institute of Information Technology, the whole range of universities. And then we have something called the management, Indian Institute of Management. And there are two kinds of universities. One is state funded, which is in the West, they call it public schools, and the private schools. So, but in India, the beauty is just because something is public, it is not necessary that it is necessarily inferior to a private. You know, the only difference is in the private, you pay from your own pocket. In public, many things are state funded. So, in fact, within India, the competition among students is to get into a public university rather than a private one, so that many of them who can't afford private education, but bright students, they prefer to get into public universities. It's very difficult to enter into that because you have a national level tests at every stage to get into those universities. For example, almost 1 million students will be sitting for getting into IITs, which is a vacancy of 10,000. And these are all bright boys and girls. And for the National Institute of Technologies is a similar number. For managements, there is a similar number. For law, there are. So it's what I'm trying to say is it's very difficult. The quality of the institutions and the quality of teaching in both public and private has been maintained, not sheer because of the competition and demand. So I think that is it. But it's slightly easier. I can also tell you that it is slightly easier for foreign students because they don't get into that competitive environment to get into these universities. As I see, the foreign students are encouraged to choose universities. Normally, we give an option of choosing 4 universities or 4 institutions in your own discipline and the level of education that you want to do, whether you want to do undergraduate, you want to do a master's degree, or you want to do a PhD degree. Some of the students, what they do is they start from undergraduate and then continue that scholarship to masters and PhDs. It's possible to do it in the sense there is no strict, unless once you are doing well in your undergraduate class and your performance is pretty good. Normally, we encourage them to get into the masters and the PhD. So some of these students they actually live in India almost for 10 years to complete their education and come back. The other opportunity is that you can study in an Indian university and then move to some other universities where you want to study. That is also many students do. In terms of fellowship, I think everything is fully funded. I think what the Indian Council, we call it the Indian Council of Cultural Relations scholarship program for undergraduate, postgraduate, and for PhDs. So you can enter at any level. It is fully funded, and including two to and fro air tickets from your place of application and to India and back. And then of course the funding that you get is not to live like a prince, but live like a student in an Indian environment and enjoy your stay as a student in India. I think that is the whole idea. The idea is also to make you part of the Indian diverse classroom, so that you establish long-term friendship with many of them subsequently who would be going to head many of the organizations and companies and all those things, I think. And that is where it is. In addition to, except as of now, there are only two disciplines where we have very limited ability to fund to the foreign students, which is one is the MBBS degree, which is the medicine, the undergraduate medicine degree, which is Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery, because of the insufficiency in number of vacancies that we have and the domestic demand. And the other department, other discipline where we have restriction is fashion technology. These are the two, and dentistry, medicine, dentistry, and fashion. These are the three things that have been very difficult. We are working to accommodate foreign students, but I think the facilities back in India is very limited and the domestic demand is very high. So besides those three, I think there are more than 400 disciplines. If you go to the website, then you will find more than 400 disciplines in where you can do your undergraduate, postgraduate, or PhDs. In terms of various engineering, various science and all this, I think there are. In addition to that mainstream, we have also something called for the art and culture, which is a separate scholarship program, which is called ICCR program, a scholarship program for music and dance, or any art form. So if somebody is interested to, let's say, do a full-fledged training of 3-4 years or 5 years in any particular art form in India, I think there are institutes and where they can get admitted, which is fully funded again, and they can continue doing it. I think these are two of the main scholarship program. There is a third one, which is dedicated to children whose parents have origin in India. We call them children of the diaspora. Maybe a country like Trinidad and Tobago, where almost 42% of the population have some connection with India at in the last 176 years. And those children, if they want, that's also an opportunity for them to, we call it scholarship for the diaspora children. This is again fully funded. So there are three different categories of financial provisions for studying in India. One is for each discipline. One is for specifically for art and art form, visual arts and other performing arts. And the third one, if you are not applying there, but you want to be considered as a diaspora children, I think your parents or grandparents or great grandparents are from India, then some origin, then you can apply for this. I think All these are in our websites, and Sweta is my colleague in the High Commission who actually guides people to how to apply, how to choose. If you want to, anytime you have a problem, talk to her, and she will guide you how which are the universities which will actually cater to your need, your objective, and how you normally the academic session is from July to April, May. We have slight difference because of the weather condition in India. So universities normally start in early July and then finish. Some of them have annual program, and some of them have semester system, which is like in any other. So it's a 2-semester system. So basically from July to December and then January onwards. So that is how some of them follow your midterm, end term, all those method, and some of them say half yearly and annual. So that is and in between you have your own curriculum. Of course, the higher teaching style mostly depends on the professor who is teaching. He designs the course and he will assess you. And as long as you are doing academically well, we have also students who need some help in particular areas, like let's say somebody needs some assistance in mathematics, because people come from different backgrounds and with different level of competence. Universities have also facilities for foreign students who would like to have some hand holding in math or physics or chemistry or some other discipline, where so that are in addition to the curriculum that you have, which are again fully funded. There is no charge that Indian universities actually charge for to give those. So basically, if you're going to India, if you're choosing India, as far as treatment of your is concerned, you are like a guest. And but please also, I must be very honest with you that India is a country of diversity. You have different kinds of food habits, different kinds of so I think the cost of living is comparatively less than many of the developed world. So the financial aid that you will get will cover as per Indian students' lifestyle. If you want, let's say, if you ask for a very lavish lifestyle, I don't think that stipend or that scholarship will cater to all those things. But nobody has ever complained that. In fact, the beauty of India is that you forget about Starbucks when you enter into India, because there's so many other varieties of food that you want to choose. Somebody who has tasted filter coffee will never get into instant coffee. Somebody like us, if we always complain that we don't get our homemade food, or let's say the local food, like for example, it's like a Trinidadians who would be getting doubles in some other country and he'll be thrilled. So we and many of us, many foreign students, foreigners, visitors, professionals who are traveling to India and who are working in India, and they, I think after a few months, they are so used to Indian food habit and the variety of food that you get. I think that is amazing. So that's okay. In terms of weather, I must also say the northern part of India is cooler, which is the nearer to the hills, Himalayas. So places like let's say Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, and all this, they're cooler places. Come to Delhi, it will be extreme weather during summer and extreme in winter, extreme in winter because it doesn't go negative temperature, but even 0 degree in lowest temperature of, let's say, 0 degree in Delhi, you will feel cold because there is no central heating system, and during April, May, June, July, let's say till the monsoon hits, the weather will be somewhere around, the temperature will be somewhere around, let's say 39, 40 degrees. So you will feel hot, So though in terms of weather, that's come to south, there is no winter, but because there is a whole big, it's long coastline, you generally feel the evening are cooler and you get breeze. So many of the students, actually many foreign students would like to go to the southern part of India. And the northeast is a pristine beauty. It's very, let's say, less people, less populated, and more green. So there are so universities and institutes are distributed all over India. So it's up to you which university you are going to choose and which place you want to live. If you want to live near the sea coast, I think you can go to the west or to the south. If you want to live to the near the hills, you can be up north in near Delhi, beyond Delhi. And if you want to live in a very pristine atmosphere, I think you can go to northeastern of India. But as I said, institutes are everywhere. Sweta is there. There are other who would, in terms of visa and passport, I think there is absolutely no problem. For students, we generally facilitate most of the things in the High Commission. So I think it's a great place to, you study a particular program once in a lifetime. So, after that, you might regret many things that I didn't do this, I didn't do that. But I must tell you, after traveling almost the eastern part of the world, the Middle East, the Europe and North America, in fact, after 25 years of diplomacy, I don't regret that I was born in India. I studied in Indian universities, and of course, I studied in London also. But the foundation that I got from Indian educational institutions today, not only as a student when I was abroad, but as a diplomat, it is really serving me well, because there are many things that you learn in India which you take it for granted in a developed world. Or maybe you don't see those things when you are working on 5G. You don't know how to handle 4G and 3G, which is important in today's world. Today, if you are working in a company and then you are sent to a place where there is no 5G, all over your lifetime, you have been in comfort, and you know that there is no power outage, and you know that life is really secure, but you don't know how insecure it could be, or there is power outage in many parts of the world, and there are challenges. There are people, there are students who work overtime to fund their own education. There are students who work at night to fund their own siblings. These are the experiences that you find in India. You have a whole the society gives you a whole range of, if you want to be in a developed world atmosphere, India provides it also. You need not be part of the population. You can be an elite, live in your own ivory tower, and okay, that's also India. But if you want to be part of the middle class, the aspiring middle class, many of your class fellows who are sharing your classroom, you will find a difference that some of them are very well off and some of them are very bright, but not so well off. And their dream is to get into that, bigger success stories. If you see Microsoft, Google, and all this, and live the CEOs are now of Indian universities and Indian origin. If you see their interviews, they'll actually tell you how their training in Indian universities and institutes have actually helped them what they have become today. So it's a I think it's a challenge in some way, but it's also an opportunity to prepare yourself better. It is not necessary that we will I worked in places like Iran, and I have also worked in places like UK and Canada, and lived in US. So I can see what kind of difference in lifestyle, but you can fit me anywhere. I will not feel out of place, just because I know how to handle things, how it's education is not only the degree, it's also that whole experience.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Your Excellency, I just sorry to cut you across, but we don't have too much time left tonight. Yeah. I know you wanted some questions as well. So
yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
I just want to invite anyone who has any questions. Again, you can post in the Q&A, but also if you just raise your hand, we can also you can speak as well. We'll just click that allow to speak button, and you can pose your question directly to the High Commissioner. So I have a question, maybe, and maybe some people might be thinking about it. And I guess I put myself in the shoes of some of the parents who were on the call. They were asking this question before you joined, which is, given that we're in a pandemic situation and thinking about going to far-flung places, what do you think might be the constraints or even opportunities, I guess, of thinking about an education in India, given the kind of global situation we're in now?
See, I think let me put it this way. I think maybe 20 years back, we were finding very few students from developed world in Indian university, let's say 20, 30 years back. Yeah. When I was studying that, in my class, there was one British student. But today, you'll be very surprised that almost 500, 600 students from US every year come to India to study partly or, couple of semester. I think when I asked them, I was in the board. So when I asked them, why do you do this? They say the kind of experience that we get in India is unparalleled. So I think that is one. Distance, of course, I can understand that it's a 15-hour, almost, I think 15, 16-hour travel from, and then there are no direct flights. So, but I think that is the only constant. But if you see, even Indian students who are coming to the West and coming to North America, they also travel that distance. I think it's in today's world, it's how you choose what you want to do and what kind of experience what you want to bring with your own education. I think that is the my children have if I can give you a personal, my children have been very, very choosy where to study, what experience they want to get, whether they want to break or take a break of 1 year and do something else, so I think that is what it is today. And the world is not going to be same in the next 10 years or 20 years. Those who are studying now in high school, they'll find or college, they'll find a very, very different world by the time they are in the workforce.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that. Jaron, any other questions from?
I'm not seeing any in the Q&A, but I do have a question in terms of studying, particularly when it comes to things like computer sciences and programming. Are there specific courses that focus on that? Specific schools that focus on that in India?
Yeah. There are taught in 3 levels actually, particularly. First was the engineering, which is hardware and all those. And of course, the computer, we have 4-year engineering program. Then you have 4-year programming program, which is the software development. And then you have the coding, coding and other, so basically, if you see the IT industry, there are guys who are associated with artificial intelligence and robotics. There's one set of people. And then you have the hardware engineers, and then you have the software engineers and the programmers. So there are 4 major levels. So universities in India, particularly the IITs, the NITs, the Indian Institute of Information Technology, have all 4 branches. So you have to choose and mix and match it depending on what interest you have. Some people, start from programming, but they don't like and then move to something. Or some people start from software engineering, but then move to hardware. Or some of them are actually more into artificial intelligence and robotics and all those. So you have to, there are each university or institutes that we tech institute has the flexibility, and it can offer you, or let's say you can choose the subjects, the discipline that you want to pursue. So I think as you take admission and see in the first semester how things are going, your fellow students will, when you look at your fellow students, they will actually tell you what are the things they are doing and what are they good at, what they really feel like. So it's a huge, as far as I said, the new sciences, which is like, if you take the science and tech, information technology, genetic engineering, biotechnology, space sciences, nanotechnology, these are the areas where I think you will find a huge diversity of combinations of courses. And
Your Excellency, quick question. You mentioned one of these scholarships relating to arts and culture and studying that aspect of things. Is it specifically for Indian arts and culture, so Indian dancing and Indian music in particular, or is it any genre of the world that can come and learn and study there?
Those are for Indian art forms, mostly for Indian art forms. But in fact, in India, there'll be very few, nobody is going to study, let's say, Western art form in India, because the maestros are in the West. What is the point of learning, let's say piano because we don't have that kind of, but if you are learning something like, let's say, sitar, there's an instrument. The maestro and the gharana, the whole institution of knowledge is in India. So you get to meet a teacher which you never met in your life in any other part of the world. So I think that is how. So these are performing art forms, music, we have vocal, and then we have the instruments, and we have also, the dance forms. So these are 3-4 areas where you can, it's a unique, those who are inclined to do that, I think it's a unique opportunity. In fact, any foreigner would give his life, if he is dedicated to that, give his life to go to India at least once in a year and find somebody, and spend few hours with him to get some tips. But we do it.
Fantastic. All right, I'm seeing a thought coming through here from Gail Pushat. She's saying that there are listings of local students who are currently studying in various foreign universities, which might be made available by the embassies in the case of prospective new students to provide some sort of support or systems for them.
Didn't get it.
I think she's asking about if there are people currently studying in India from Trinidad and Tobago, if there's
Oh
a
yeah.
system whereby we can contact them, or maybe the students
Yes,
who are
yes.
interested in
Yes,
going across can have access to
I
them.
think if we sends an email, Sweta will respond to them. In fact, I think some students who have gone there as undergraduate students are now doing PhDs. So one of them I asked once why. He said, I love India, and the way things are, I went as an undergraduate student, but I am now in the last year of my PhD. So he's almost staying there for 10 years or so. So those kind of students, I think they will be good encouragement. They can tell really, they can share their experience, what happens in India. We can put them in touch, no problem.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for presenting today and for answering the questions at hand. If anybody else has any questions, you can feel free to put it in the Q&A, and if not, I think we will move to start wrapping up.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you very much. I just want to also thank you, Your Excellency, for that presentation. I started to get a little bit jealous about not getting a chance to experience, India as a student. So it's a fantastic opportunity. And I guess before I knew about the scholarship for diaspora children, but I didn't know anything else. And so the reality is there's so much more that's available.
No. For people like you, we have something also sponsored on, which is called iTech program. Those who are professionals working and they want to go for the courses are actually from 1 week ranging to 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, depending on whatever your specialty is. There is a iTech program, Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program, which is also fully funded.
Okay.
And many of these, professionals who are working in Trinidad and Tobago, in Caribbean, they actually go before the pandemic, almost every year, 15, 16 of them go to India, and it's called retraining themselves.
Fantastic. Good. Yeah. All right. Well, given the time, I think, Jaron, maybe we can wrap up. I just really want to very much thank the folks from the High Commission of India, but also from the German Embassy, from the EU Erasmus program. Invaluable contributions really opened our eyes to what's out there. I also just really want to thank the panelists before Krista, Jesse, Basil, and Suan. 3 of them are in Paris, and it's very, very late over there. So those folks had to drop off. So post for all of the panelists and attendees, just some of the contact information.
All right, James, you're breaking up a lot. All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
All right, James, you're breaking up a bit, so I'm just going to wrap it up. I want to thank you guys again for joining.
That was shared from the various embassies and such, so that you can have a chance. Sorry about that.
No problem. All right, so what James just shared there would be the embassy contacts in the chat, so feel free to copy them so that you guys can reach out to the embassies individually if you have further questions that you want to ask or get some information, like we mentioned before. And please also stay tuned for our future Rethink events coming up. We're going to be posting the information live so you can register, and we'll probably reach out to you via email as well. Is that correct, James?
Yeah, that's right. Via email again.
All right, fantastic. So thanks again for everybody who attended and stuck around till the very end. Thank you guys so very much. And James, thank you very much for your work. Keep it up. And on behalf of the past students union, we say thank you again, guys, for coming, and we look forward to the next one.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jaron. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Bye-bye.
Great job, guys.